Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. Today, the sell-off in the stock market resumed, wiping out all of the gains from yesterday's rally. And that rally that we got yesterday, that had followed the Bank of England's announcement of a new program of unlimited bond purchases, an intervention designed to halt a rapid sell-off and spiking yields in the UK bond market. Now, precious metals actually held up quite well today compared to stocks. Both gold and silver did have small fractional losses, but they both managed to hold on to most of the gains from the previous session, unlike stocks. So it seems like metals may be benefiting from this pivot by the Bank of England as investors begin to realize what the end game here actually is. But I believe that it will be when the Fed pivots that metals are really going to take off. Another thing we saw today was that the yield on the 10-year US Treasury began to rise again, and that was following a decline yesterday. And I believe that we are going to continue to see yields on US Treasuries moving higher. Now, you might have your occasional down day like yesterday, but the trend is going to be higher, and that will continue until the Fed is forced to pivot policy, just like the Bank of England did. Now, you might think that just because the Bank of England has pivoted, that doesn't mean that the Fed is going to follow suit. After all, Fed Chair Powell has made it very clear that he will be fighting inflation and tightening monetary policy no matter what the consequences. But then again, just 3 days ago on the 26th of September, Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey was also singing a hawkish tune, claiming that the Bank of England would not hesitate to raise rates if it was needed to meet the 2% inflation target. So let me ask you, how is unlimited quantitative easing going to affect that 2% inflation target? Because you see what I mean, when push comes to shove, no matter how hawkish these central bankers' speeches are, when it's a choice between easing and an economic crisis, they're going to ease, even if that means that inflation runs out of control. And also in the news today, we've got the developing situation surrounding the sabotaged Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 pipelines. Today, German officials are claiming that an explosive device with the power of at least 500 kilograms of TNT was used to damage the pipelines. And the implication of that fact is that only a state actor would have such capabilities. And there's a lot of finger pointing going around about who's to blame. Many are claiming that Russia itself is behind this, and there was a Polish official the other day who insinuated that the US was at fault, and theories seem to abound at this point as to what really happened. But I think that if you want to come to some conclusion regarding the question of who sabotaged the pipelines, the most important question to ask yourself is simply who benefits from this? And in light of the new information, let me know who you think is behind it down in the comments, because this is one where I have not seen any real concrete evidence one way or the other yet, and the abundance of theories is honestly a little overwhelming. But one thing that we can take away from this all is that it's a big escalation in the ongoing conflict. This is the first attack of the war that has taken place outside of Russia and Ukraine's territory. And the situation over there is getting pretty grim. Vladimir Putin is going to be holding a ceremony on Friday to officially annex the 4 eastern Ukrainian provinces that are currently holding referendums on joining Russia. That's Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia. And once those provinces have been officially annexed, if Ukrainian forces then make some attempt to retake them, then that is going to be viewed by Russia as an attack on Russian soil. And that opens the door for the use of tactical nuclear weapons. So far, this conflict seems to have done nothing but escalate since it started. And that should be a big concern for everyone, because if a tactical nuclear weapon is used in Ukraine or somewhere else in this conflict, even if it doesn't lead to a full-blown World War III, the day that bomb goes off will be the trigger for one of the biggest economic crises in the history of the world. So prepare yourself accordingly. To me, of course, that means stacking up some precious metals, specifically physical silver, which I continue to view as the most undervalued asset on the planet. And one thing that was very interesting about today's market decline was that the US dollar index actually fell alongside stocks. It was down to just over 112, down from a high earlier this week of 114.76. And in the past, one thing that we have seen with market sell offs is that typically metals fall alongside everything else when all these other assets are selling off. And the US dollar index typically strengthens. But if markets fear that a Fed pivot could lead to runaway inflation, we could see the US dollar falling alongside other assets. And if that turns out to be the case, metals may buck the historical trend and actually rise in price even while other assets collapse. And today's market action, with a falling US dollar index and a sell off in stocks simultaneously, while metals remain relatively flat, that could be a sign of things to come. Leave me a comment down below to let me know what you think about all these recent developments in the ongoing global crisis that we seem to find ourselves living through. And I just want to say a big thank you to all of you for watching. I will catch you next time. Stay safe and happy stacking. Smart Silver Stacker, out.